This is Stan Schoenbuck, Epsilon Lambda. I'm number 6. I was the first pledge master of the chapter.
Hi, this is Dave Turetsky. I'm Epsilon Lambda 20. I'm recording this on August 8th, 2009. One or two reminiscences about the Epsilon Lambda chapter of TEP. Originally, the chapter had its roots in a house plan at City College called Grau House 60. That particular house was formed of graduates from Brooklyn Technical High School, all a very bright bunch of guys, and events have subsequently borne that out. Stan Hampman was president of the chapter, and he and I became friends. He invited me to join the house plan, and I became the first non-Brooklyn Tech member. Subsequently, the following term, I was elected vice president. The house plan had some members in it who were especially hot to become a fraternity. In particular, I recall that Larry Gottlieb was very much gung-ho for fraternity status. And perhaps Jerry Swartz, Eli Zachariah, I may be mistaken in those latter recollections. And there were some other houseplan brothers who felt similarly. I volunteered to follow up with that, and I don't now recall, but the possibility of TEP came up, and there may have been one other fraternity, but I don't have any recollection of it now. In any event, I looked up TEP in the Manhattan phone book and went down to their offices somewhere in the 42nd Street area, possibly 42nd Street itself, and in a relatively dark, gloomy set of offices, met with Sig Sontag, who was the executive director of the National Fraternity, and himself a TEP member from Columbia University, which was the Alpha chapter of that fraternity. Sid is famously known as the Bald Eagle, also a man who would drink up quite a storm and would leave whatever the function was with quite a load. And he had this wife, an attractive woman, wore fur wraps. So Sid set us on the path, and I reported back to the house plan. And I think there was somebody out of Columbia who was sort of guiding us down that road. And so we went through and we were inducted at a ceremony as the Epsilon Lambda chapter. Initially, Stan was, as president of the house plan, was Epsilon Lambda 1, and I, as the vice president, was Epsilon Lambda 2. When we formally became the fraternity, the initial president, Buddy Engelstein, elected to reassign the numbers, and he, as president, became Epsilon Lambda 1, and Buddy Bregman, who was his vice president, became Epsilon Lambda 2, and thereafter, by virtue of the offices, Stan became Epsilon Lambda 12, and I Epsilon Lambda 20. Initially, we rented a basement room in a house somewhere out on Van Siclen Avenue, out in the Far Rockaway area, and we would get on the train and go out there and have parties. I began to reach out to the Catherine Gibbs Secretarial School, and we would invite a bunch of their gals over and party with them and other groups that we got a hold of, and it was nice. Subsequently, the chapter moved to 87 Flatbush Avenue, not far from Atlantic Avenue, not far from a bar that was run by an uncle of Larry Gottlieb, and it was on the second floor above a hat store, and we were there for a year or two. As I loosely recall, I got involved in the suggestion that we should be somewhere in the city, and in particular I thought Greenwich Village would be a good place. And I recall walking around the downtown area in and around the village and looking at different properties, and the third floor of this building, 7 Washington Place, which was right in the NYU area, became available, and was pretty well satisfied all of our needs, and it was certainly in a far more central area and one more conducive to the sort of social activities of a fraternity. The NYU chapter of TEP had the second floor, and at some point in time they burnt down their chapter, and it heavily damaged our chapter. I was in the process as president of the, a sort of a foundation that overlooked the chapter and which had control of the property. I was the chairman, and was negotiating with, I think it was a TEP brother somewhere, for insurance, but the papers had not yet been processed and no insurance was in effect, so we had to bite the bullet on that. And I don't know whatever happened to the NYU chapter. I think they moved off somewhere else. But eventually, though, we got back, although I was no longer at City and no longer involved in the day-to-day fraternity life of the chapter itself. Later, but this is after my time, the chapter found a house up on Convent Avenue, which made a great deal of sense, but the composition of the university, the city college, changed. It was open enrollment. It became an entirely different proposition, and there are others who are more familiar with the roller coaster events that then took place. Hank, I don't know why people are putting down trailer trash, or for that matter, Texans, or balding people with limps and gross tattoos. It's really not necessary to tell us where they are in specific detail. I think you can date anyone you like from trailer camps. I understand, not that I have any personal experiences. They'll take all comers for a wide variety of sexual acts. However, I would certainly encourage you to have frequent checkups for sexually transmitted diseases. If you've gotten an acquired taste for trashy women who live in dimly lit trailers, certainly bring a flashlight, and don't forget to check the merchandise. Antiseptic disposable towels are a definite plus. And Hank, stop worrying. If George W. Bush can make it, anyone from Texas can make it. And about Enron, I think that company had great potential, Hank. I can certainly understand your accepting their job offer, however ill-timed.
hominis conversio, omnia exiunt in mysterium, et tu cacamum.